Hello everybody, my name is Byard Beck and this is my process speech and I'm doing it on how to cook the perfect steak. Alright, so our first step to cooking a perfect steak is to make sure that our steaks are thawed. So I normally use the New York strip steak, that's my favorite kind. You can really use any different steak. So I normally have them frozen, so I'll put them in the refrigerator maybe the day before. And then maybe about 2 to 3 hours before cooking, I'll leave it out on the counter. And just getting it to room temperature just ensures that it cooks properly and cooks nicely. So, alright, so our step 2 is to take it out of the Ziploc bag or just simply put it on a plate. And then we take a paper towel and we dry the outside. So taking away this excess moisture ensures that it gets a nice crust on it when you begin to sear. Alright, so the next step is to add your desired oil. So I like to use olive oil, and I usually just rub it into the steak on both sides. And then I'll add my favorite rub or seasoning, sometimes just salt and pepper, it really depends. But the oil kind of allows the seasoning to stick to the meat, and it also allows for, better searing in the pan. Okay, so one of the keys to a good steak is good butter. So I like to make quick compound butter, and I know a lot of people may think it's really hard, but it's very easy. First thing you do is you take maybe half a stick of butter and you put it in a coffee mug or a bowl, and you put it in the microwave, usually for about 30 minutes or 30 seconds until it is completely melted. And then you're going to add fresh minced garlic, fresh herbs into the butter. And then you just stir that until it's mixed. Some of my favorite herbs are thyme and parsley. These work really well with the steak. Your next step is to preheat the oven to 350 degrees. And then you're going to put your pan on the stove all the way up high, and you're going to let it sit for maybe 5 to 10 minutes. Letting it sit for a long time really ensures that it's as hot as it can be, and this will really help to get a good crust on your steak. So the next step is you're going to take your steak off of your plate and you're going to lightly touch it on the pan. And there's a certain noise that you're looking for to know if the pan is fully heated up, and it's going to be this very aggressive sizzle. So when you hear that sizzle or just something aggressive like I'm talking about, you'll just go ahead and place your steak on the pan and begin cooking it. So after your steak is on the pan, you'll let it sit there and sear for a good maybe 4 to 5 minutes on each side until, you can keep checking it and just see, what crust looks best to you. And it's also important to make sure you turn it to its side and get the smaller parts of the steak to make sure it's seared on all sides. So after the steak has reached the optimal crust you have on the outside, and it doesn't have to be cooking for a long time, because we will put it in the oven and make sure it's cooked all the way through. So we're going to then put it on a baking sheet. I usually put it on aluminum foil, and I put a little bit of compound butter on the top, and then we put it in the oven. So how long it's in the oven is really depending on how you like your steak cooked. So there's a couple different methods you can use to check the doneness. You can use a thermometer, obviously, and here's some of the different temperatures for the different cooks of steak. And then there's also the palm method. This is something I like to do. So you can actually feel this part of your hand, and depending on what finger you're holding your thumb with, it gets more and more tough. And this is kind of what you're looking for in your steak. So, for example, I like medium rare. So if I touch it to this part of or my middle finger, feeling this part of my palm is what the steak should feel like if I want it to be medium rare. And then the same thing goes for if you want well done. If you touch your thumb to your pinky, it's very tough. Same thing for rare, it's very not tough. So easy way to do that. Okay, and then another important step is you take your steak out of the oven and you make sure it rests for at least 10 minutes. So sometimes it's good to put like some aluminum foil on top so it steams a little bit, but letting it rest allows the moisture that's been bubbling inside to reabsorb into the meat, and this allows for the steak to really get that, that juicy center. It's also important to not cut it too early, because if you cut the steak too early, then all the moisture leaves the steak, and then it's not so good. It's not as juicy as you'd like it. All right, so after it's rested, go ahead and plate it, cut it up, and enjoy that perfect steak. And if you want a little bit more flavor, you can add some more of that compound butter. I mean, I don't know if it's the best for your health, but definitely tastes awesome. All right, thank you for listening.